Good evening. I'm Don MacArthur, and we're coming at you live from the Windsor Star News Cafe. We're here to talk about the vital issues raised in Windsor Gone, an investigative series by reporter Carolyn Thompson, photographer Tyler Brownbridge, and digital journalist Dylan Christie. Windsor has a 9.3 unemployment rate. We have a youth unemployment rate that's more than double that. We have among the highest student debt defaults in the province, and thousands upon thousands of our young people, they fled Windsor for bigger cities and far-flung locales like Fort McMurray, where they've established new lives and have new jobs. That's the problem. We're here tonight to talk about the solution. So I'm going to turn it over to my panel now. We have business and educational experts. We're going to start with Allan Wildermann, the head of the University of Windsor. Dr. Wildermann, opening statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I guess I would, of course, will come from a position that I really believe that in a functional community, a society, you need a strong economy and you need great education systems to back that up. And everywhere you go around in the world right now, you'll see countries everywhere striving to make sure their education systems are strong and vibrant and are addressing both the long-term needs vis-a-vis a good broad-based education in liberal arts, in sciences, in engineering, business, all of those things, as well as a strong support of technical training, and trying to mesh them all together to work and to function. I fled Saskatchewan in the 70s to come to Ontario. And I think we have to also continue to take a long-term view from the perspective of anywhere you go in the country. Things ebb and flow, and you want to make sure that you're making your decisions about how to try to address the problems with the caution that taking a long-term view can bring to it. But I look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move over to Dan Brown now from Why Not, Windsor-Essex. He's youth, he stayed. Dan, opening statement.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And thank you to the Windsor Star for bringing this issue to light to our community. I'm the coordinator of a project called Why Not Windsor-Essex. It's a youth attraction and retention program focused on engaging and communicating with young adults and young people in the region. It's hosted through We Tech Alliance and funded through the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and we are blogging and sharing opportunities on social media and doing different networking events and really making sure that young people in our area know what is available out there, whether it's volunteering, and we really take a holistic approach to the lifestyle and person that the young people are in our region, and we advocate for the change that it'll take to see more young people living in the area.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Now over to Yvonne Pilon. She's president of the We Tech Alliance, and she's all over social media, and we're happy to have her here. Yvonne, opening statement.
Speaking of that, I feel really, really naked without having my cell phone here. I can't tweet. As Don said, my name is Yvonne Peel. I'm the president of We Tech Alliance. As Carolyn would probably say in the Windsor Gone series, I am one of the believers and the dreamers of Windsor-Essex to become a millennial-friendly city. I'm here both professionally, being the president of We Tech Alliance. In order to build a thriving technology community, you need talent. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. And personally, I am a young professional, and I'm so tired of seeing my friends leave. And I'm so passionate about this region. And if you really think of, our neighbors, and in time of bankruptcy, the biggest time, like when there's times of challenges, creates the most opportunistic environment. So I'm just so excited to be on this panel. And if you're in the audience or you're watching at home, please continue to develop this conversation. Use the hashtag Windsor Gone. We really want to continue this conversation and really bring the attention to Windsor-Essex as being a millennial-friendly city.
Okay, thanks, Yvonne. And I neglected to mention we do have a live blog going beneath this. We're live on the web, so the hashtag Windsor Gone. Use that, and we'll pull in your comments and thoughts. Over to Matt Marchand. He's head of the Windsor-Essex Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Don, and good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Marsh, and I am a former expat to the extent that I spent some time abroad, and I came back to the great area of Windsor-Essex. So I'm living proof that you can be in Europe and come back here. So this is a great place, and we're going to continue to keep that message going. I do want to thank Carolyn Thompson and Tyler for their great work, and the Windsor Star, of course, for organizing this community forum tonight. And I also want to acknowledge the very talented colleagues I have on this panel tonight. I'm sure we'll come up with some great ideas. Windsor-Essex Chamber, for those of you who don't know, we are the leading business organization in the region. with our chamber network across the province and across the country, we're able to leverage the power of our network so our local and regional economy can prosper. On a local level, we have partnered with numerous community organizations, including Allan Wildermann and the University of Windsor and Labour for our policy forum last spring. And we look forward to taking a leadership role in helping get some solutions for our great region that we all live in. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And now over to Dr. John Strasser, head of St. Clair College.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you first to the Windsor Star for putting on this event, and thank you to Carolyn and to Tyler and to Dylan for putting together the articles. From my perspective, let me share with you what I see in those articles in two parts. When you read the articles, you see Bob, a teacher, 4 years on long-term supply that has gone out west. You see Laura, who's a social worker, now 2 jobs in this area instead of going to Northern Ontario where she would be making more money than the 2 jobs combined here. You see Jacob, a brilliant historian, Amy in social work doing 2 jobs, Nick, who went to a private career college, left the job at $30,000 a year to go out west, and you see John, who was laid off from the City Parks Department and is looking for a job out west. What does that say? Well, in a few words, it says that if you get higher education from any institution that's not specifically designed to acquire certain skills, doesn't automatically provide a pathway to a good job. That's the first thing. The second thing, you have Nick, skilled trades, never brought up in high school. That's a comment, so no option there. Brenda, who's making $150,000 as an electrician. Nick, who is now a swamper, not making as much by his admission as a skilled trades in the area he's working in Fort McMurray, but still making more than $100,000. And you have the wife of Chris, who is took border services. Now she's an equipment operator making $140,000. And you have Chris, who was a machine apprentice and who couldn't find a job here in Windsor. What does that say? Well, it prompts a question. What are you bringing to the table? Why is someone going to pay you money to work for them? So do you even know which table you want to sit at? And when you get there, what are your expectations for payment for those services? So it should be a fun discussion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Strasser. And the woman you've heard so much about, I would like to have her up here now, Carolyn Thompson, Cracker Jack reporter. She's going to tell us how this all began. Come on up. And like all great journalistic endeavors, it didn't begin with much. So Carolyn, talk about that.
Well, this actually started as a story. We saw a story actually from Michigan about debt default rates. My editor, Roseanne, over there, saw it and just asked me to look into it. And when we started asking some questions about it, when we looked at our own numbers, we realized that Windsor is one of the highest in the province, not only for debt default rates, but also, pardon me, for repayment assistance rates. So the number of people who take on these big OSAP loans and then either stop paying it or have to renegotiate the terms or get some interest relief because they just can't pay it back. And when we asked questions about that, it really seemed like it was tied very closely to the unemployment rate in the city, and particularly the high youth unemployment that we have. And so our story changed. It started as a pretty small story about the issue of debt defaults, and it really became this story about what is going on for the youth in our city and why are they being forced to choose? Are they being forced to choose? And what can we do to make it a little bit easier for them when they're going into these kind of decisions about their higher education or about what career they want to pursue? What needs to be out there as resources so that they can actually make a good decision? And is it okay for them to leave? So that was sort of where we ended up, and it turned into a trip to Fort McMurray to learn about what the lives are like for the people who did go away. And what we heard from most of them, almost every single person, was that they really want to come back. And it's just sort of an economic reality right now. So that's sort of what we want people to be thinking about when we talk about all of this, that a lot of people do want to be in Windsor, but pardon me, what we heard is that the choice right now is hard to stay. So how can we make it a little bit easier?
All right, Carolyn, thank you. And just quickly, Windsor Gone. I think sum that up for us just in terms of what that meant, because it doesn't mean sort of physically gone, but also maybe hope is gone, or something like it was kind of a double-edged meaning, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that was chosen because this isn't just about people physically leaving. There are people who've stayed, but it sort of seems like in Windsor right now, the choices for youth are a little bit more limited than they might be in another city where things are kind of booming economically. So maybe if you do decide to pursue a career like a teacher or a social worker, maybe your choices, if you're going to stay, are a little bit harder. Maybe you are going to have to take on 2 jobs. So something is gone, whether that's the physical person or whether it's some of the options that you might have in a bigger city. People are kind of making choices, but every choice seems to involve a little bit of a sacrifice right now.
Okay, so I guess, the first question, I guess maybe Dan, we'll start with you. I think you've made contact with people who are out west. Some of them might be coming back. I mean, crazy as it is, there's layoffs in Fort McMurray this week with plunging oil prices. The loony things are picking up here. It's very hard to sort of plan things based upon the boom and bust cycle of the economy. But the people you've spoken with, what's it going to take to get them back? Is it just a high-paying job, or do we need another aquatic center and bike paths? What are the key issues that you're hearing?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is young people, like, I feel, in some ways I feel like as a young person myself, I was raised to believe that sometimes you feel like all people expect from you is what you're worth, like when you're working. And it's not just that. It's kind of almost dehumanizing in a way that you're a holistic person really. And yes, you have your tax earnings that you send in, but it's really about the holistic life. You have to really win people's hearts, and it's about more than just a job. And yes, that's a big part of the reason why people move away. But not everybody can be bought per se. And I think a good point to what you're just saying about the Windsor Gone, it just kind of hit me now, is like a lot of people. I think there are some people living here that are more gone than the ones who physically left. And that's just a really, there's a big, there's a sociological kind of, and so it was in the one of the videos it was mentioned by, I think, the DJ. He was talking about how he'll go to a restaurant here and you kind of feel, it's very intangible, but you feel that almost sense of dread, or he almost would call it depression in the video, but you feel like that hopelessness. So I forget what the question is.
How do we get them back?
How do we get people back? It is more than jobs. I remember it was not just about jobs. It's about the holistic style. I think the jobs, the economic opportunity is a platform that we start off of, but you really need to build on that when it comes to basic human services, the leadership in the area, the aesthetics. Is your place beautiful? Do you like living there? Is it a place that you can work, live, and play?
Okay. Anybody else have any initial thoughts on that? How do we get them back? What's the most important?
Just one note in terms of research. So millennials, a lot of people think it's jobs, but when in doing research with Dan, we really found that millennials choose a city before they choose a job. And I think most economists would probably say it is a cool factor. We do want, a great job and that type of thing, but it's also the arts, the culture, the music. A lot of millennials now, they want a job too, not just a high-paying job, but they want a job that means something. It's not just a 9-to-5 thing. They really want it to have an impact in the community. So in terms of what it's going to take to move back, I think these are great conversations. This is a starting point. This isn't a problem that we're going to solve tomorrow or even next year. But the fact that we're talking about it and that we have amazing leaders up here and our local paper bringing this to the forefront, I think it's a start.
Okay. Anyone else on that?
If I can, and the comment on the millennials has already been mentioned, but that is part of the problem. If you want the high-paying job and everything else, you may not be able to get that. You may have to make choices. There's a sense of entitlement that's starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger in this country. That people want everything, and sometimes you have to make very, very hard choices, and that's where I think we are.
Okay, and the whole Gone, that was the whole fundamental thing at the heart of Gone, was that you face a choice to leave or to stay. We've talked about that. I want to turn to education for a second. Dr. Wildermann and Dr. Strasser, in terms of, I guess, that sense of entitlement. I went to journalism school, and I knew that when I went to journalism school that I would have to travel to find a job. I mean, I knew that going in, and I embraced it. So should students look at it that way, or is it realistic to think, whether you're in Windsor or another community that's small, that isn't Toronto, that isn't Montreal, that you can get an education and expect to have a job in that community, or no matter what you study, should you get ready to pick up stakes and travel? Dr. Wildermann.
Sure. May I make one comment? I guess I think students are more realistic about this than we might think. And I know I talk to a lot of young people, and I don't get the sense that the sense of entitlement is as overwhelming as we might think. They are very aware of the cost of education. The average student debt when people graduate in Canada is about $21,000. In Windsor, we're pretty close to that average. 40% are graduating without debt. But I think overall there's a lot more realistic thinking out there than sometimes we think. There's amazing students across our universities and colleges right now. And I'm very optimistic about it. And I think Windsor's, if you take a long-term view, when I left Saskatchewan, not to keep talking about Saskatchewan, I'll try not to, but I left Saskatchewan, where it was a place that in the 70s you wouldn't spend any time in at all. It was not perceived to have anything going for it. Now look at it. But let's just be careful, do the right thing, make sure we've got great education systems, and people are pretty realistic about it. And the discussion like tonight is a great opportunity just to do a check on where we are.
Okay. And when colleges or universities, when you guys are coming up with your curriculum, how do you sort of figure it out? Are you trying to determine, okay, this is what students want to take, so there's a demand and we can get their money and we give them the program and we don't care if they get jobs at the end of it? Or do you envision that there's a demand for a certain job and you're going to tailor a program to fit into that industry, which it could be a little tricky. As I said, with the boom and bust cycle, you could be training people for the oil fields and boom, it plunges and you're out of luck. But I mean, do you have the students' best interests at heart, or are you just saying, well, 1,000 people want this course, so we're going to give it to 1,000 people and we're going to take their money?
I mean, I'll comment first, and John can talk about the mission of the college. But I think for us at the university, we do a lot of things to make sure wherever we can we're having programs where students can be engaged in the community, can be working with companies, can do all of those kinds of experiential things we want. And we want to do more. That's why we're putting a campus in the downtown to create more opportunities to do that. But as a university, we also have a big responsibility to make sure that we're offering a comprehensive education so that people also can graduate with an English degree, a philosophy degree that's going to give them great critical thinking skills and make them be people who have the best chance to adapt to whatever's coming down the road. And we don't want to lose that. We have to do all of that at the same time, of course, absolutely. We're trying to make sure our engineering, business, science programs, many of our arts programs, let's get them integrated into the community as much as we can at the get-go so that students can graduate with as much possible experience and ideas about what their degree can do for them. But we don't want to give away that broad-based education.
Okay, and Dr. Strasser, I guess on that, because some people would argue the college is in a different position maybe than the university, because if you take political theory, you know that's not going to get you a job in business, although you'll be great with your Locke and your Hobbes. But if you take business administration or IT, there might be an expectation, realistic or not, that's not for me to decide, but that there's a job at the end of that rainbow.
I think it still comes down to fundamental choice, and in this case, a choice of education. If you are going to spend your money or somebody else's money or borrow it from the bank, what is it that you expect at the end of that post-secondary education? If you're not expecting that what you take and pay for results in a good job, then all options are open. And I guess you'd be in the best of all possible worlds. But I think it fundamentally comes down to that first. So from a college perspective, we have taken out dozens of programs in the time that I've been there and added more than what we've taken out in terms of responding to the economy. I welcome the university coming downtown, but we've been downtown since 2007, and we're happy we're there. We partnered with the college, with the industry in the province in terms of second career programs, and we were one of the larger suppliers of that 3 or 4 years ago. We have done the numbers, and if we're not number one this year, we are close. in terms of, excuse me, we provide more healthcare training. We took the broadband of healthcare training than any college or university in the province of Ontario. And we're trying to do that to match what we do to the needs of this region. So we're going to continue to do that. We will continue to work with the university to try to help the citizens of this community. But it still fundamentally comes down to, what is the person that is paying the money expect for the money that they are spending?
Okay, thank you. Carolyn has something on this.
Well, I'll just add to that, because we asked a lot of people when we were doing this research about what their thoughts were about what the role of the education system is, and we heard a lot of different answers. Some people really think that colleges and universities should be training you for a job, and if there isn't a job, it's not fair to take somebody in and maybe lead them to think that they might be employed later in their community when there just aren't necessarily jobs in that field right now. But we also heard the perspective that it's really hard to predict where the jobs are going to be. And in a place like Fort McMurray, the industry partners very closely with the college. So they have classes that are actually sponsored by, for example, Suncor. I don't know what's going to happen to those now that the oil price is dropping, but they would sponsor a class, and they would say this entire class of 30 students, they will study to be whatever it was, some sort of skilled trade, an electrician, and we'll take them on as apprentices, and then they will be hired as long as they meet our standards. But in Windsor, where we're struggling with high unemployment, we don't really have that luxury. So I guess it sort of comes down to this question, and this was the question that we heard over and over again when we were talking with people about it. Is the educational system designed to tell people, these are the jobs that are open right now, and this is what we're going to train you for so that you can stay in your community? Or is it to be an educational resource that people can go to and say, I'm interested in studying this, and I would like to pursue that whether or not I'm going to end up in Windsor? So I'm interested to know what you think. How do we sort of reconcile the need for certain trades, for example, the skilled trades shortage that we have, with the desire for people to pursue what they're interested in?
I'll take that, Don, if you want.
Okay, boom.
We've got, at minimum, I just did a speech about a week and a half ago at the Canadian Italian Professional Business Association. We have at minimum, and I know Tanya's here, she's doing some great work for Workforce Essex Windsor. We have minimum 400 to 600 jobs right now in the higher tech space and the higher skill space that we cannot fill. So we're losing sort of regional economic wealth and regional economic opportunity. I have members come in, tool and die owners, all sorts of skilled folks come in and say, you know, we need these folks, can you get us today? Now they're looking at bringing in skilled immigrants. There's a whole lot of opportunity that we're leaving on the table. So the comments that we get are, well, you know, I got a degree in this and I want to do that. And that's great. You know, if you want a degree in philosophy or liberal arts, you know, you'd be there's lots of good arguments to do that. But locally at the moment, the demand is for, you know, higher skilled folks. And just as an example for the young people that are out here, the high skilled tool, dial, and mold jobs coming out when you're fully trained, some of these guys are starting off and ladies are starting off at $70,000 to $80,000 a year to live in a community like Windsor-Essex. And you can't, the comparable wage in another community would be, you know, probably start with a 2. So there is economic opportunity here. I know sometimes you go to school for this. Well, I don't want to take that. I want to do this. That's great. If you want to pursue that, good for you. But at the same time, the marketplace at the moment is saying, you know, we really need some high-tech folks and high-skilled. And just on that, a lot of the perception has been in this region that things like the auto sector is kind of like a lower skilled and, you know, blue collar and all the rest of it. I can assure you this is the most high-skilled area that we have, and maybe it's going to grow even further, maybe one of the most high-skilled areas in North America coming up. Everything is so high-skilled, so high-tech. The tech and the auto industry are merging together. So there's going to be tremendous economic opportunity for our young people right now coming into, you know, later years of high school or into university to get into that space and taking off. So I'll just leave that for you. I don't want to take up too much time, but that's what I'm hearing right now.
No, it's great. We've got an hour plus. We have the room booked all night. You know, but we'll check with Marty Bennett so we can go long. Anyone else on that specific issue? I saw Daniel writing something down. Is that?
Yeah, I just remembered the stigma being in high school of the skilled trades and even just of college, and I still remember to this day. We were in grade 10, and our class is acting up like you do when you're in grade 10. And a teacher was walking by the hallway, and she sticks her head and goes, "Oh, this must be an applied class." like to shame us, saying like this must be a class towards the college career path. And I remember like that pissed me off for one, and it hurt. And I think that a lot of people feel that, and we're raised with that expectation of if you can make it to university, you can make it for life. And the truth is, I don't feel like the purpose of university education is to prepare you for a specific job. I think it's to prepare you for the world, to create a well-rounded human being who can tackle whatever it is it might be that's there when you're done. And yeah, in terms of preparing someone for the right jobs, I would say I don't know how well we can really predict. By the time someone has done their education, will that what the jobs of today are, I don't know if they are the jobs of tomorrow. And if you look back 6 years ago in the economic crisis, would we have told people to go into the skilled trades? I don't think so. So I don't know if that's the answer either.
Just Dr. Wildermann and then Yvonne. Sorry.
I would just make one comment. The employment rate for university graduates is in excess of 91% 2 years after they get a degree. And so it's not that people who graduate from university aren't getting jobs. In fact, the CEOs of Canada have come out with very strong statements saying that they like the fact that Canada not only is doing a lot of really great things on skilled trades training, but also has a strong university system. And also just another anecdote, you mentioned the default rate on loans. Within Ontario right now, 4.6% of university students who graduate default on their loan. With colleges, it's 13.2%. And that says that college graduates are probably not always landing in the job either. And that's just, it depends upon where you are, it depends upon the time, the economic cycle. There's so many variables here. And I really believe that we need to try to encourage people to pursue whatever they're interested in doing, whatever that might be, and make sure we have a great education system that can support them whatever they want to do.
Okay, Yvonne.
So I just have a couple of points. I do want to commend both the college and university. From an outsider looking in, both of them have been very reactive in terms of building very new programming. From the college perspective, I know they implemented a mobile app course as well as a robotics course. I was part of those committees, and again, they did it as fast as they could, and those are, again, adhering to what the needs are locally and building those programs. And then from the university standpoint, they have a lot of interdisciplinary courses where you're taking business and engineering. And then from also, again, in my WeTech role, we work both with university and college and getting companies to engage with students. The reason why I'm here is because I have roots here. I had mentors, I had people who supported me, and I got involved. And the college and university are both doing that. I see it in programs, and those are so important to get young people entrenched in the local community. The other point I want to make is about, we can rely, the university has great information, but at what point is the young person's role and responsibility to really do a lot of research? The day where you went to university and got a job, I'm not saying that's not the case anymore, but you really have to develop yourself and personal skills and really do your research. And third, how do we determine what our community needs are? It's data. And I do want to highlight Workforce Windsor-Essex has just launched an Employer One survey. That is a critical component to our community. So if you're watching or in the audience, please fill in that survey because it's really taking data in terms of what our community needs are in terms of talent, in terms of staffing and whatnot. So that information will then be pushed out to community people like the people on the panel to better prepare our community and our young people for jobs and to stay in our community.
Okay, Ann Jarvis wrote a column, sort of earlier this week, called the auto industry both a blessing and a curse for Windsor. This week, we see there's going to be, a big influx of workers. Windsor Assembly, $2 billion investment, 1,000 skilled trades, but they're parachuting in and parachuting out. So, and it's also no guarantee that Windsor Assembly is going to be here forever. So, Matt, what would you say to that? That the auto industry is a blessing and a curse, or is it all blessing?
Well, the $2 billion is a blessing. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I see Ann in the audience. We'll talk later. But no, $2 billion, 100% is a blessing. But I understand what Ann is saying at the same time. There's been historically Windsor-Essex I think our first auto plant was built in 1901. We've been at this for 100 years. We're very good at it. We produce great cars, got a great workforce. I think over the decades, there maybe a little bit of complacency has been built in. But I think that is shifting. We had a conversation earlier about, someone mentioned, I think it was you, Dr. Strasser, sort of entitlement. However you want to phrase it, this area, Windsor, Detroit, and this part of the Midwest and Southern Ontario has been historically known as the auto sector capital. And we've profited extremely on that. We were if you weren't one of the top communities in Canada, we're certainly the top 10 in terms of wealth, probably 20 years ago. And that sort of morphed as other communities recognized the value of the auto sector. And so they sort of got into the arms race, if you will, of getting involved in that game because it's so lucrative. So they had the advantage of being sort of hungry and new into it and all the rest of it. We've been, well, it's always been here, so it should be here. But the one thing we know about this world is that you can't bet on yesterday. You have to keep being aggressive. You have to keep innovating. You can't rest on last week's victory. You have to keep reinventing yourself and, again, being more aggressive. So the $2 billion, yes, 100%. It's going to put us in a good place. It also sort of positions us and repositions us and reaffirms Windsor-Essex and Ontario, for that matter, as a place for things like our world-class tool, die, and mold sector. We are the world leader in that. And that kind of investment psychologically has a nice boost to us. Yeah, of course I'm a Windsor-Essex. That's where, that's where the leadership role is. And we want to continue to that. But also at the same time, affords us to, gives us a space to get into things that we're starting to get a little better at, like agriculture. We have the most greenhouse under glass in Canada. The Premier has challenged us to double our exports by 2020. We're working hard with that sector. We were fortunate enough, the Windsor-Essex Chamber, to partner with WeTech this year on our tech show, which is at the Kubota, and it was late November. And just as a quick anecdote, we brought in Jay Cohen, who was a partner with Don Gilbert, and he's doing great work in Detroit, helping revitalize it. And it was striking to us how he said, look, you don't have to go to Kitchener, you don't have to go to Waterloo, you don't have to go to Silicon Valley. Right here in this region, we can do whatever they can do and better, because we've got the people, and I've said this in the newspaper and all over the place, we've got an outstanding business community, probably the best in the country. You don't have to go to Kitchener, Waterloo, we can do it right here. Detroit is revitalizing their tech sector. Our guys, and we've got a great tech sector, I see them all the time at the Chamber, and they're not as loud as I'm going to speak for them because they tend to be quieter. We have an outstanding opportunity in that space to get bigger. And also Fab Dolan, who came from Google, who came to our tech show. We had an opportunity to spend some private time with him, and he was so impressed with the young entrepreneurs. We're going to the train station after, and we were chit-chatting in the car, and he was just praising the talent and the skill of our young people. Because as part of our tech show, we had the sort of entrepreneurs corner that Yvonne was gracious enough to set up, did a lot of hard work on that. And he was so impressed with the work ethic, the young people. He basically told me, you got to keep doing that and do more of it, and then get the message out, because you don't have to come to Toronto, you don't have to go to Vancouver. So we have a lot of opportunities. So getting back to the original question, the $2 billion, yes, awesome, blessing. Keep on that front, but essentially we have to be aggressive on all fronts and not just rest on our laurels.
Okay, anybody else on that? Blessing and curse?
Just
Dr. Strasser.
A couple of comments. Of course, $2 billion investment in any community should be looked upon as a blessing. Here's the problem that I see, though. If we are going to take the $2 billion and celebrate it and do nothing to put in much of the infrastructure that's necessary to take us past that investment, we are going to be right back in the cycle we're in less than a decade. Because what will happen is you will see low to medium skilled jobs being paid very well, and that's a good thing. People, by doing that, will slip away from the education sector because they're making good money and they're living in Windsor, and the Canadian dollar will bounce back again. And part of the reason the investment is made is because nobody predicts the Canadian dollar is going to go to the American dollar for quite some time. If we don't take advantage of the opportunity that was just been provided for us, we are going to be right back in this cycle in less than a decade. My prediction.
just quickly, a colleague and I were talking about this $2 billion investment, and he brought to my attention a situation similar in Sterling Heights. About 2010, Chrysler Feed at the time was slated to close, and they got a $1 billion investment. And what's really interesting about that, with that investment, and here in Windsor, it's the retooling, and we all know retooling now is going to automation. And when you bring in more robots, and I apologize, I don't have the manufacturing lingo, but you're creating an opportunity for more high-skilled workers. You need engineers, you need software developers. So that part, I think, from WeTech's standpoint, is very exciting to see that this new assembly line will be retooled with a lot better technology to then bring in those higher-skilled workers that will need to go to university and college to work there.
Yeah, I'll just add that's bang on. With the number of new products coming out, it's going to be a record number of products in the next 4 or 5 years. The switch to aluminum, which is going to require a tremendous amount of R&D, a tremendous amount of high skill. In addition, something that the Windsor-Essex Chamber and its network partners, including the University of Windsor and our friends in the labor community, our auto strategy, trying to develop and make sure that Ontario continues. And it's not just auto, it's the whole thing that surrounds us, the whole ecosystem. It's a tier 1, tier 2, the high tech, the tool die and mold, it's the whole thing. It's tremendous value, and that's why other jurisdictions are so keen to, as I say, get into the arms race for that. So,
Okay. Anyone else on that? We had that covered pretty well. And the national auto strategy, I think that goes without saying. We need that as well. The flip side of that, though, earlier this week as well, 100 call center jobs. Matt, I guess I'll direct this to you, coming to Windsor. And we should celebrate that, right? Frank McKenna said we should celebrate every job and sing hosannas from the rooftops, but they pay $11.50 an hour. It's not skilled labor, although there would be managers and stuff. So is there any sort of, is it all good, or is there any sort of risk that, we become sort of a beacon for, because really they seek out places where there is high unemployment to get workers, and is it all good call centers, or do we need to be careful there?
every job should be celebrated. It's an investment in our community. It may help people in sort of the lower skill end, help skill up as they move up the skill chain, if you will. It's an opportunity to put us on the map, if you will. Anytime you have an opportunity to generate income and generate opportunity for people to participate in the labor force, that's a good thing. And we should be celebrating people coming to Windsor, Windsor-Essex for that.
Dr. Strasser first, and then Carolyn.
The employment rate in Windsor is one of the highest in the country. It's been increasing for over a decade. The poverty level in Windsor is one of the highest in the country. So any job that is created here, in general, is a good thing. What I have a problem with is celebrating call center jobs that pay $11.50 an hour. I do not think that the leadership in this community should be celebrating the fact that we have call center jobs. Good thing, but I don't think we should be celebrating it.
Okay. We're going to switch gears here for 1 second. There's Mickey Bezaire. If you could just slowly make your way up here. We have a father who wrote a very powerful letter to Carolyn that ended up in the paper. And it's something we've talked about. Hi, Mickey. Come on up here. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
Don't be shy. He's from Amherstburg. Hi, Mom. Hello.
Mom.
But essentially, there's a very popular expression, "Go west, young man." And it was made famous, a century ago, and it was pick up stakes, go find yourself. And we sort of debated this question in the newsroom. What's wrong if people go? Go to new places, learn new things, and then come back smarter and better than ever. And boy, Mickey, you wrote a great letter. Talk to us. Tell us your story.
Yeah, that's what I am, a father. This is hard. 9 years ago, my son left to go out west. Matter of fact, he didn't leave. I drove him. My wife and I drove him. He followed in his car, and we put everything he could in his car because he went to St. Clair College, and he became an electrician. And for 4.5 or 5 years, he gave it his all, became an electrician. They helped him get his job, everything. And I give them so much credit because so many young people became something because of them. He lost his job because you know yourself, the plants were closing, blah, 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 blah. He's, Dad, what am I going to do? He had bought a condo. He was making good money. Next thing you know, he's working at these places that you work 3 different jobs in 1 week, these temporary places. They're finding him a job. And one day I said, you know what about out west? I said, look at this. So, and I left. About a month later, he said, I'm going out west. So, like I said, we went with him. And he went out there. Hard? Damn right it's hard. But he's been there 9 years. Actually, after about 5 years, I convinced him to come home. Come on home. He was here about 6 months. Probably had 20 jobs in them 6 months. And I don't know if one of them paid over $20 an hour. An electrician with 2 tickets, industrial and residential. You know what? You can say what you want. You're going to need electricians. You're going to need bricklayers. You're going to need plumbers. Not everybody is going to be higher tech, because if you don't have them guys to build your damn buildings, you're not going to have nothing. They're trying to bring these people home. Like I said in my letter, what would happen if every one of them kids, and they're not kids, he's 35 now, what would happen if every one of them came home tomorrow? Unemployment rate, yeah, it wouldn't be 9.3, it'd be 12.3 or 15. Yeah, and here's an electrician. These companies, I see it every day, they're crying because they have no electricians. Pay a skilled tradesman skilled trades wages. Hear, hear. These are skilled tradesmen who put it out. 5 years of training and hard training. And it's not just go play pool at St. Clair College. And I'm sure he did some of that too. But you know what? We're talking about our young people leaving and going away. In the 50s, the Italians and the Polish people, they left their countries. They came across an ocean, couldn't even speak our language. And they came here. Why? Because they couldn't make it there. They said, Canada, we're coming there. Well, our kids are saying Alberta and Saskatchewan. And you know what? I don't want to bring them home. We should get some more kids ready to go out there, because I'm glad to see my son making $60 an hour. You know that? And he's going to come home. He is going to come home. I can't wait for that day, and I hope I'm still here. But when he comes home, he's going to have some money in his pocket, and he's going to have some experience under his belt. My son right now, and I'm so proud of him, he's a project manager at a major construction company for the electrical end. Right now, he's costing out the electrical on 4 schools. He's got nothing to do with the oil industry, nothing, which I'm happy about. But he said to me this morning, Dad, he said, I would be 60 years old before I would even be able to put an application in for that job at home. Just imagine. And all the people that left to go there, most of them are in his shoes. We have teachers working at Tim Hortons here. We have nurses that can't get jobs, and we're going to train more of them. How many teachers are graduating this year and not getting a job in a classroom for 7 or 8 years? That's the way it is.
Wow. Okay, very passionate, very well spoken. Mr. Desire, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, panel. Over to you. I mean, I think it's a fundamental question. Like, does it have to do with Windsor, that we're a big little city or a little big city? We're not quite Toronto. We're not quite Chatham. Is it the auto industry? Is it that we're so far away from Toronto and on the border? Is there something sort of in Windsor's DNA that compels us to want our children to stay here? Or are we looking at it wrong? Like Dr. Wildermann, you're from Saskatchewan. I'm from Burlington. I traveled to find a job. We sit around the newsroom table. A lot of folks traveled to find a job. So over to you, Mickey's comments. Are we looking at it wrong? Is it okay if our youth are leaving? Well, let's start let's talk about what Mickey just said. Powerful stuff. Let's start with Matt. Go.
Sure. Matt, you're up.
No problem. I think that someone I can speak from personal experience who has sort of been abroad for educational purposes. We should when you go abroad or live abroad or go to school abroad or work outside your hometown, you develop a different perspective, some different ideas, and when you come back, it's like, wow, I think I have some ideas that I think I can make a contribution a different way. I see how they did something here. This is how they thought about that there. This is what they did about their waterfront here. So you get a better perspective of things by having experience in different areas other than your hometown. Not that obviously being in your hometown is not necessarily a bad thing. So you do acquire different skill sets. You look at Dr. Wildermann. He's taken the reverse. He's sort of said, "Go east, young man," and so so here he's here. And there's a lot. I had the fortunate circumstance just yesterday to meet with one of my chamber members who's in the financial services sector, and he's from Niagara. And he thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. I'm in Windsor, and he brought his family, and he said, this is great. Like he's basically like, because we started talking about this forum, and his view was, wow, you guys don't do a good enough job in telling your story to people outside of your area. You got a lot of great things here to tell. Is it, all the amenities of Detroit? We've talked about that. We get all the benefits of the big city, living in a smaller cost center. So there's no downside in traveling and coming back, and not just sort of saying you can't leave, but we sort of want you to leave. We want you to come back too. But at the same time, we want people to not from here to come here too. So we get a nice mix of different ideas and different perspectives to make us all stronger, to make us all a bit more competitive, make us all a little better.
Yvonne or Dan, yeah.
I think I would say, what makes businesses grow, and it's talent. And to the point that the gentleman made about, the salary differentiation, I don't have the data in front of me to say the differentiation, but I think we need to realize we're not just competing with Windsor, we're competing with the world. So therefore, when it comes to salary and hourly rates, we need to be competitive from a North American perspective and not just from a Windsor perspective. Because again, if we want to grow and build this, white-collared or more knowledge economy jobs, we need to be competitive with what's going on, not just in Windsor-Essex, again, to attract and retain talent.
And Dan, your organization exists to keep people here, to lure them back. So what do you think about the concept that if the high-paying jobs aren't here, they should go where the high-paying jobs are?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to tell somebody what to do or where to live, or people have been migrating since forever to just for the point that, is it Mickey? Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, Mickey. Yeah, it's the point that Mickey made about people going across to a new continent, or just whether it's for war or whatever. People migrate. I think it's not just about focusing on about attracting and retaining young people. It's about building a city and a lifestyle that's possible that young people want to be a part of.
Okay. Anyone, Dr. Strasser?
First of all, Mickey, great speech. I've paid money and gone to conferences and listened to keynote speakers that weren't half as inspiring as what you just did. So
the We Gone Oscar goes to.
Good for you. I share some of the same things because my dad came here from Poland in 1928 to Canada alone, not with a family. Went to Saskatchewan first, actually. Worked in the mines in Northern Ontario. Went to Nova Scotia, worked in the mines, and then worked in the steel plant, and finally settled down in Nova Scotia because he could find a job that could allow him to do that. Everybody wants their children and their grandchildren to be near them. That's a given. He never went back to Poland. He passed away in Canada, never went back to Poland. And there were times when the mist would cover his eyes and he would think about siblings back home and mom and dad back home. The key for this area still becomes, what are we as a group of people going to do about getting our people educated so they can stay here? That requires some thought. It requires some of the things that Dan alluded to earlier. We're operating under a system that Bill Davis started in 1967 that solved a big problem in 1967, but it's time for a change of education in this country because we are still operating on a stigma. I see it in the high schools, I see it in the institutions. If you're smart, you go to university. If you're not so smart, you go somewhere else. That's wrong. and it's getting proved wrong day after day after day, especially if you go back to the first question, why are you going to get an education? The young people of today have to seriously look at why they want an education, what they're doing it for, and plan accordingly. And we're not there yet as a education provider in this province or in this country. And if we don't change soon, you're going to see more and more jobs going somewhere else. Our youth unemployment rate in Windsor now, I don't know what it is today at 7 o'clock, but it's hovering around 20%. We've had 6,000 people leave 25 to 44 in the 5 years between 2007 2012. The training that we do in our industry has dropped from about 1,200 per person to 705 in the 20 years between 93 and 2013. There's a lot of things going in the wrong direction, and we've got to change it. And it's only the people here, if we get together, make sure that people are listening to it, that are going to provide that. We can't wait for somebody else to do it.
Okay, thank you. Just 2 seconds. If anybody has a question they want to ask, something they want to say, just slowly filter up, and we're going to take those. But education, Dr. Wildermann, that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, well, just I guess one thing I'd say about the unemployment rate. Across Canada, the unemployment rate of 18 to 27-year-olds is higher than the national unemployment rates or provincial or urban unemployment rates that are talked about. It is obviously a serious issue in Windsor, but the 20% unemployment rate in Windsor, while it's high for youth, it's not a number that you should compare to 6% unemployment rate somewhere else, because that's a number that's looking at all age groups. Yep. But that isn't to say it isn't a serious thing that is happening. But I guess your son, who's in Alberta, he's talking to you every day, which is great. And I think it's impossible for one community to create all the jobs that are going to let children stay where they are, and I don't think anybody expects that. And I think, too, we can't put all of the responsibility on the education system, and St. Clair has done an amazing job developing all kinds of programs. We're doing all we can, but at the same time, jobs are created either through the public sector or the private sector, and you need employers creating jobs as well, and that's why everything has to be working in harmony. We have to do all we can to attract companies to want to be here, and good companies that want to be here, because we have a great workforce here. We need to promote the tremendous value that the region has got, the great climate, the community. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that we have to use to try to attract companies to come to be here, because we could have the best university and college on the planet in Windsor, but if no companies come and create jobs here, they're all going to leave.
Okay. So again, anybody have any questions? We can come to you. If you're shy, this is cordless, so just put up your hand if you have questions or comments. I'll keep it going if you don't, but if you have questions or comments, now's the time. Okay? You guys are answering all the questions. It's awesome. Where? Sorry, I apologize. Come here, please, sir. Oh, Chris Holt. Yeah, Councillor Chris Holt. Come here, Chris.
All right. I actually wanted to get Dan to elaborate a little bit more on, he alluded to making Windsor the kind of place that the youth want to be here. And because I think that's the only thing that we have control of really right now. And I was hoping you could elaborate on that. What kind of city do the youth want to be in?
Because we do definitely have a lot of amenities as a region. I saw in the video, Sandra Pupatella was talking about the great yachting and birding and golf communities, and I don't think those are the kind of areas that a lot of young adults spend time in. So if you look at things like the biking opportunities, I was saying to Yvonne today, I don't know what happened to the Buskers Festival. That was one of my favorite ones. Street performances, a lot more downtown events. Cool, music scene is really important too. I think we have a pretty good music scene. It's a little bit under the surface, but it's there. That's what comes to mind right now.
Okay. Yvonne, to you, that's a question to you as well, I think. What do youth want here?
I'm happy. Again, based on, Dan has been immersed in this for it's been a year now since he's been part of Why Not. But again, the research, it's walkability, more, and when it comes to real estate, we're not necessarily suburban people. We like condos. I live in Walkerville, and it happens that we have a counselor here from the area. But what Walkerville's doing is really, I can't believe the influx of young people, and it's all organic, and that's what I love about it. It's entrepreneurs moving back from Toronto to start, opening coffee shops and breweries and restaurants, and it's become its own little oasis almost. And I really hope that kind of continues to grow outside of the Walkerville area, and really everyone should be looking at that region in terms of how it's branded itself, or that area how it's branded itself. Because again, when I'm there, it's a lot of young professionals in all of those restaurants and businesses. So,
Kristen, you have any thoughts on that? You used to have the Scale Down blog. This is kind of your issue.
No, obviously it's something as a city councillor I want to hear, and I'm glad to hear that the things that we've done in Walkerville is, and like you said, Yvonne, it has been organic.
Mm-hmm.
It's been totally citizen driven. But I want to know if there's something we can do to sort of make it better, and what both of you have been saying is music to my ears.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other people who need to hear that too. So anybody out there, if that's important to you, know that please share that with as many people as you can, because we need to get that information out there.
And Dan, when we hosted Your City, Your Idea event, one of the biggest thing was a co-working space. This Windsor Star News Cafe plays that role, but we need more of these spaces, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen here tonight is that all these young people are going to start talking, and they're going to start building relationships, and you're going to meet people, and things are going to happen from this event. So sometimes all it is putting people together. I've learned a lot already sitting up here. So again, co-working space and in areas and networking events where people can connect and share ideas, and an atmosphere, an entrepreneurial atmosphere too. We need to continue to build on that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. And you mentioned entrepreneurial in, sorry? Oh, okay, the boss.
Dun, dun, dun.
I have two questions. One stems from the early part of the discussion, and that is a comment was made about young people having a sense of entitlement. And I thought when that was made that I detected on Yvonne's face a bit of a wry grin. So, Dr. Strasser, can you amplify a little bit your what you said about that sense of entitlement? And then I think I'd ask Yvonne to respond to that.
When you look at what students are doing today, especially the millennials, if you want, but I would say anybody that was born after about 1980, so we'll include the 80s as well in there. Many of them are discouraged. They have followed footsteps that basically somebody else has plotted the course for, and they're starting to find themselves in a spot that they don't know how to get out of. When I think many of them felt that if they did certain things, like get an education without a definite path, they were entitled to get something from that. When you look at the minimum wage today, if you work 52 weeks of the year, you're looking at a salary around $23,000. So if somebody pays you double the minimum wage, you're making 46. There's not a lot of the people born after 1980 that would be happy with $46,000 a year, and maybe they shouldn't be. But there are a lot of young people that are discouraged, that are living at home with their parents, and trying to figure out how to move forward. And I think many of them have lost their way, but I think it all comes back to what they thought they were entitled to when they started the process of education.
Okay, so I won't disagree that I don't think there are people who are entitled, but I'm looking around the room and I see a lot of very, very hardworking young people who have homes, who have cars, and who have worked their tails off to get where they are. And I did a class in a presentation in high school, and I asked a number of employers, what was some of the challenges they saw from the millennial generation. And it was entitlement, coming into a job expecting full benefits, cell phone paid, phone, a car allowance. Yes, there are those people, but I see completely the other side of that. I see people who are millennials in terms of characteristics, are very passionate, are hardworking, are creative, are innovative, tech savvy. Yes, sometimes they feel entitled, but at the same time, they're hardworking individuals. So I'm not going to say there are not those who don't want to work hard, but I know sure a lot of people who are working right now for free, just trying to get ahead, and I don't think that's an entitled mentality, at least for those people.
I've got to correct something on that statement, not from Yvonne's viewpoint, but just the comment I made was not meant to infer that people don't want to work hard or they want to get something for not working hard. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to get out of the system they're in. And they've been, in many cases, put in that system by other people who advise them to do certain things. And it's from that sense of, well, I should be entitled to this because I followed the roadmap that you as my parents or my advisors laid out for me, and it didn't work. So what do I do now?
Okay, Dr. Wildermann.
Yeah, I just want to take this back to some of the data that has actually been out there that's been collected very carefully over many years. And right now, if you look at graduates, within 2 years, around 92% have a job. More than 80% of them will say that their education has something to do with it, is contributing to it. I think we need to look at the data. And I think if you look at the data, yes, there are a lot of young people, there are a lot of old people falling through the cracks, there's a lot of middle-aged people falling through the cracks for all sorts of reasons. People who've worked hard all their life suddenly find that their job is gone. This is horrible, absolutely horrible. But there's a lot of people out there and a lot of young people working really, really, really hard. And aside from, yes, lots of difficulties, lots of challenges, but there are more successes being created by their ingenuity and their hard work than I sometimes think we give credit to. And we all know about the stories of people who graduate, they can't find a job, so they have to move, or they can't find a job and it doesn't work out for them. But there's also like a far greater number of stories where people are helping to transform society, and it's changing. It's not the way it was when I graduated. It's like, and everybody knows that. But there's some things I'm pessimistic about in the world, about the state of the world, but the ability of young people to figure this out, I'm optimistic about.
Okay, I just want to say that I have one of those hardworking millennials on my web team, Dylan Christie. He could really be on this panel. He could be hosting this show, but he's busy at the back switching the cameras for this live production. He's 26, so he's getting a little long in the tooth, I guess. But he's young. He stayed home. He's making a difference. He's working hard. He did all the data on this project. So I agree with that 100%. They're out there.
So just on that point, so I think it's amazing that we're highlighting young people. So if I just say, what can we share with you today to take home? Recognize young people like Don just did it and giving Christine or Dylan like a big high five. Look, for those of you who are employers, do you have succession plans for young people? Do you have professional development opportunities for young people? Do you have an environment that's conducive for young people? And I'm not saying just cater to young people. For those of you that are in the private sector or the public sector, your boards, how many of your board members are under the age of 35? Where's the diversity? So these are questions, that you should bring back tonight and really look at it. How can we bring more young people a part of our community in terms of decision-making roles? The city just announced, opportunities to join their boards and their committee that ends at the end of January. Get involved. Yeah, and young people, it's on you too to get involved. And also mentorship. Whether it be successful entrepreneur, even us here, we've all had mentors. So go back, and to Dr. Strasser's point, there are a lot of young people who are in those cracks who just don't know what's out there. join groups like Why Not Windsor-Essex, look to other people outside of maybe your surrounding area, and get a mentor to kind of just guide you through the community, because the communication sometimes is a challenge in the community. I think 20% of jobs are actually posted online. So what does that mean? 80% of them are floating in the air. And I said to Dan, the Harry Potter owl is not just going to come around and bring the job to you. You have to go out there and build relationships and network.
Okay, yeah, here, Matt.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I just want to say that the Windsor-Essex Chamber has been pretty aggressive in partnering with WeTech, and we've had a new partnership with Why Not, with the emerging leaders. So the Windsor-Essex Chamber and a lot of its community partners are really engaging the youth community. And I can tell you right now, I've been exceptionally impressed that we had our first event back in December. And we look forward to building our relationship with both WeTech and Why Not.
Okay, come on up. So just give us your name, where you're from, sort of thing, and then.
Sure. My name is Zane Ismail. I work out in Leamington, but I live here in LaSalle, Windsor. This afternoon, I was actually in a very interesting meeting in Chatham, listening to health system innovators across Chatham, Kent, and Essex County, and listening to a bunch of panelists talk about what are some of the opportunities in healthcare for this area and some of the industry partners that they're working with to bring to the area. The panel was excellent, and then it went down a tangent I wasn't expecting. And the CEO of Chatham Kent Health Alliance sort of berated the crowd and said, you know what, we're really not doing a good job at the governance level to include youth in the decision-making process. And so I wonder what the panel thinks, and I think Yvonne already covered it, but I wonder what the panel thinks about that comment and creating opportunities for youth to serve at the governance level of publicly funded primary care and acute care organizations. And to springboard off that, what does the panel think about perhaps retooling, like Yvonne said, the acumen here in Windsor for a industry that's thriving with opportunity like healthcare?
I'll just make one comment on that. I think that's a really, really important point. I can say at the University of Windsor, which is has a consolidated budget of about $330 million a year, 1/8 of the board members, 32 people on the board, 1/8 of them are students, which is actually a lot. And I think we need the wisdom of youth and the frivolity of old age.
Okay. Anyone else on that? Like on the boards, do you have young people at St. Clair College Board or the Chamber of Commerce boards?
We do automatically have at with the St. Clair College automatically a board member from the students, and I think Colin is here keeping an eye, waving at the back. He came here today to keep an eye on me, as did our chair, Vince Marcotte, and our chair-elect, Dan Wilson. They're all out here keeping an eye on things.
Okay,
But,
well, thank you for coming.
The idea of having more youth involved, it's all you can say to that is yes, of course. The more they get, the more they get involved, the more they understand the system, the better the networking, the easier it is to do a whole lot of things that make a difference in the community. So the sooner you can get involved, the better, absolutely. And we try to encourage it from a college perspective on our staff to get involved with the community to try to make a difference where you can.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Josh. Sort of pretty applicable discussion here. I got invited by a friend, Jude, and I actually went October 2010. I went out to Fort McMurray. I worked out there till December of this year, or 2014, so about 4 years. And in that time, 2012, I bought my house and 2 rental properties. So, but what I guess is what I'm thinking in this discussion is I think I went to university for a couple of years as well before I went out west, but I think a lot of younger people and people in general are oftentimes educated in whatever field they're going to go into, but I learned over the last 4 years that not a lot of people are financially educated. And my buddy kept on telling me to read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think I bought it for $1, and it really began to change how I viewed financial issues. And I think so a lot of what we're talking is industry and companies and all that sort of stuff. But I think if there's one thing I can speak of as a young adult for young adults and people in general is to become more financially educated and aware. Because we're in a world that there are economic factors and movements that we don't have really much of a say in at all within our world. The price of oil is a perfect example. There's decisions that are made that can affect the whole world. So the more that we can take ownership of our financial future and things like that, as opposed to just depending on a university degree or even a particular field, but that we can become financially educated, which I don't believe that that's, you can even go to business school and not necessarily be really financially savvy. You'd be more of a bean counter at times. So I guess I'm just, if there's one comment I've sort of learned from being gone for 4 years and planning on staying in Windsor and supporting this area, that would be one thing. Another thing I think that should be happening is whether the municipal government or larger forms of government are about fostering new business within Windsor. You know, there's really cool areas like Polisher or Walkerville or whatever that I think are prime for new business, and that students and people need to be connecting with the small business center at the university. Need to know for under 30s there's grants, there's opportunities for people to move ahead financially, to explore new avenues rather than working for somebody trying to do a venture of your own. So just some thoughts.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I'd like to just make one,
of course,
one comment, because I think that's a really important point. One thing I can say that is happening, it's happening certainly in Windsor and it's happening everywhere I know of, is that I don't think universities historically have done a very good job at developing employment centers, career counseling centers, financial management centers, and it's something we're looking to do. And I think the colleges have probably done that better in many places, but I know there's a lot of discussion going on here and other universities in Ontario and beyond. How do we get better at creating centers within our universities that can help give students that kind of a conversation and also help them do more to try to guide them towards where there are employment opportunities?
So just on your point to the entrepreneurial ecosystem, great exciting news for Windsor, and you're going to hear about it. You know, the college and the university both receive funding, and I don't want to take away from the glory. Okay, I won't. I'll let Dr. Wildermann speak on that. But just from an entrepreneurial ecosystem, we're very lucky to have a number of agencies, both from institution side, the Small Business Center, I see us here. They have 2 great programs. One's a starter company program, and then a summer jobs program that allows high school students to participate in entrepreneurial ventures. WeTech Alliance is in the technology innovation space. You have the Downtown Accelerator, which is there from a mentorship side, and then a space side. So there's a lot of support out there, and it's our jobs to kind of tell you that it's all out there. But I'm really, and again, I don't want to take away from I'm sure Dr. Strasser and Dr. Wildermann will be speaking to that, but there's some really exciting things in terms of that pipeline being built from starting kids from the institution side and then growing them out. So, and maybe this would be a great time for you to share some exciting news that you guys have.
So,
well, yeah, she's putting on a tea for you. Let's break it here.
No, so stay tuned for an announcement next week.
I think, isn't it public? The evening source session? It's all over Facebook.
Yeah.
There's like 15 reporters here. We'll get it before the night is through. Dr. Strasser.
No, Yvonne, no matter what you do, you're not going to get them to talk about the Entrepreneurship Center. But Yvonne has a good point. Sabrina DeMarco is here, and Sabrina she's in charge of the Small Business Center. We've got employment Ontario offices in Windsor, here at the Roundhouse area across from Devonshire, in Amherstburg and Wallaceburg, which help people who are on unemployment plan resumes, make business plans and all that. We do an awesome job. We do between 5,000 and 10,000 people a year. So those services and the Entrepreneurship Center that the university may or may not announce next week, and the one that we have, and I see Chris Ryan is here. For those of you who know Chris has been appointed director of our Genesis Center, which is the Entrepreneurship Center at the college. There's a lot of services available to help develop this region, and part of our problem is we've got to sort that out so that everybody understands where they can go to get the help. Because part of the reason, or part of the problem now is people don't know. Some people don't know. So we have to get together with Yvonne, Sabrina, Chris, the person who may or may not head the entrepreneurship center that Dr. Wildermann may or may not announce next week. That person or persons, we've got to figure that out so that we can be a bigger help to the region.
Okay, if the cat's not out of the bag, it's peaking. So, Dr. Wildermann, one more chance to you.
I'm expecting a large turnout at the announcement now.
Just a quick statistic, though. Small business in Canada represents 70%, so 7.7 million jobs in the private sector. So that's 70% of our private sector workforce is in small business. So that's pretty important, and that's why entrepreneurship is so vital to any community, because it really is such a big part in terms of our economic growth.
And just one point on that, the chamber membership, about 80% of it is below 25. So that's the, I know we talk a lot about the big stuff. We talk about auto strategy, we talk about agriculture, but the number one economic driver for Windsor-Essex, across Ontario, across Canada, North America really is small business. And I see Sabrina's here and a few others. So that's the next step in the plan. So.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Naomi. I'm really passionate about Windsor, and I really love it. I've had, I guess, ideas to move away and everything like that, and a lot of people give it flack, but I think that there's great people that are here, and there's great opportunity. And I guess a few things I wanted to mention was I have a friend who works in Toronto, and she does urban development there, and she said that one of the examples of that they give in one of her classes for the things not to do to build a city is to depend on one kind of trade or something like that. So they give Detroit as their example because they solely depended on automotive to keep them going. And I don't know if that's part of like Windsor, why we've taken such a hit is because the automotive has taken a hit and we've kind of gone down. So that's like one thought that I was kind of thinking on and would like to hear some perspective. And then as well, I have like two siblings. Actually, the guy that went right before me is my brother, kind of hard to follow, and a sister that work out west, and a lot of friends that have moved away. And I feel like it's really hard that to say that. I mean, like, for some people to move away and they do it for a few years and then they end up loving it, but there's people who move away and don't love it and they don't want it, but it's the only option because there's no work in Windsor. And I feel like there has to be something else, and it just feels like right now your only option is kind of to be an entrepreneur and make your own business, which is great, and maybe there could be something like some more outlets or visible outlets to even young people of how they could do that, whether that be things at universities or things held at cafes like this, where it's like just people in the city, like higher positions, kind of like coming and helping. But I feel like right now, it just, for a lot of my friends at least, it feels like, all right, once I'm done school, I'm moving away. There's no other option. And which I think is a shame because, like I said, I love Windsor and I want to see it prosper. And then as well, I feel like our downtown area just needs a lot of love and a lot of creativity and a lot of care, because I have friends that come and visit and they'll go to the like art museum and they'll go to like a coffee shop and they're like, okay, is there anything else that we can do, like any stores we can go to? And I'll send them to like a few places, but it's almost like the Walkerville area, which is great. I love that place too, but like just our downtown area, I wish that the city would kind of look more to that. So is there any hope for that? Is there any future for that? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I guess we'll start with Dr. Wildermann, because you planted a lot of seeds downtown that are going to eventually become trees. They're not there yet, but they're getting close.
Yeah, it's really important, and I agree with you completely that the downtown, I think, it's a key part of the city. The university, what we're doing downtown is going to bring a lot of people. It's going to bring a lot of opportunities for partnership, for engagement with people, and I think many urban centers you go to, the post-secondary sector has can really be a catalyst in driving energy and creating a buzz in the downtown. And I know St. Clair is already there. I think when we open up our buildings downtown, it will be a catalyst for some of those things. We can't do it all. And I think, again, the education sector is really important, but we need everything working together. But I hope we'll be a catalyst, certainly.
I just think from a downtown perspective, I would agree. I do think since in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a lot of changes, especially even just the bar scene itself. You're seeing a lot of the kiddie bars now come into more mature lounges that are gearing towards young professionals. That's a good sign. Also festivals, and I know Veronica Samick is in this room. Did anyone go to Waves, which was the basically light installation festival on Riverfront? The Stilt Guys is back there. He was there nice and tall. That was an amazing festival, and it was just absolutely blew my mind. And if you didn't attend, I think they're going to be doing it in the next couple of years, hopefully, again, fingers crossed. But those types of things, in Detroit, they have an urban beach. So this is my dream, is that Charles Clark Square in the winter will be an ice rink, and in the summer, it'll be an urban beach. Imagine filling that space with sands, a bunch of Muskoka chairs, people could go there and have lunch. That would be amazing. It doesn't have to include alcohol, but I just think like we need to start really being creative and really organic. And again, to Dr. Wildermann's point, we can't rely on everyone. We have to do it. Whether it be we, the young people, we, the community, we have voices. We need to use them. So somebody once told me it's not what the city can do for you, it's what you can do for your city. So I think we need to start thinking about that more.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm a student at the law school here. I noticed a lot of the conversation so far has been focused on post-secondary, both in terms of work and in terms of education. My question for the panel is, where does secondary high school education fit into this conversation? And specifically, I'm thinking about the fact that we have one of the most competitive computer science programs in Canada here. We have incredibly competitive business, English, and all sorts of STEM programs throughout our high schools in Windsor. So where do those students and where do those teachers and where do those administrators fit into this conversation?
Well, I guess one comment I would make, I think there needs to be as much dialogue as possible between the high schools and the university and the college. And I know there was a point made earlier about how students in high school sometimes feel like they're maybe being directed one way as opposed to a different way. I think we need to do more to have the conversations that within high schools, people can have as much information as possible about how they can pursue what they want to do. And I don't think we've yet maximized what those conversations ought to be. But I think that's something really, really important to look at. And I do agree with you that the high school system is incredibly important. I'd say the primary system is also equally important because that's where a lot of the learning skills are developed.
So from WeTech's perspective on the STEM side, I'm not sure if you're familiar with FIRST Robotics and the growth that we've had in this region. From one team, I believe 2 years ago, now 14 teams. We host the Windsor-Essex Great Lakes Regional in April. It'll be Easter long weekend here. It's one of the biggest FIRST robotics competitions in Canada. We have teams coming down from California. It is amazing to see high school students develop a robot in 6 weeks. It's absolutely amazing. And what's interesting about that, it connects, the programs are amazing. So if your high school doesn't have one, please connect with me and I'll get you in touch with Eric to talk about that. But it connects local high school students with industry. You have Centerlines and Valiants and Ricos mentoring these students. And then both from the college and university side, they have mentors from both their programs mentoring these high school students. So that's a great way that kind of, I think, STEM and computer science and all stuff to kind of interact with each other.
Dr. Strasser.
A couple of comments, and the timing is apropos. We had a meeting just before I came here with Andrew from the Department of Education at the university, and with a C from Chrysler, and our folks, and the subject was math. How do we get more people at a higher level in math with the ultimate aim to get more people in engineering? And I've been charged with plotting the next step or making the next step happen, if you want. And we don't need to go into all of that, but the comment was very timely. We have to be more engaged, especially with the secondary school level, because there are things that we can do better in all levels. And to the extent that we can transfer what we need from a university or a college to make the students more successful, we have to do that. So we got together at the college today and started that. The other side, in terms of the some of the amenities, and I would give this to all the listening audience. We have a pond at the college. It's about 4 or 5 inches deep. We have facilities clean it every day and put a fresh coat of ice. And if you go there at midnight tonight, you will find kids playing under the lights hockey. It's free. We don't charge anything, and you're welcome to come. So I give that to folks. And
what time do we face off, John?
I've seen you play hockey, Allan. I wouldn't go there.
You can't.
I'm just kidding. I've never seen him play hockey. And this week we had the first rendering of a band shell that we're going to put on campus, so that we can have a spot to encourage the youth of this region to have a place to play that looks and feels like live entertainment. So we're moving along on some of those things. But the key is, we have to do it. We can't wait for other people to do it. Otherwise, you're subject to grants and political influences and all of that. And I think Windsor deserves better.
Can I just make one comment?
I was going to, sorry.
Just one quick comment, and not to give a plug to the Symphony Orchestra in Windsor, but which is great. But it is great, and the Windsor Symphony is another example of music that's actually reaching right through into the school system across our region. And I know the college is doing all sorts of great things in music, the university, the symphony. I think this thing with music, and John's comment just made me pick up on that. Everything from folk music to the Windsor Symphony Orchestra, it is all here.
And they do play every now and again, about once a month they play a live set here at the Windsor Symphony. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
Just to add to that, because we want more participation next year. At Christmas, December 21st, we had Jeff Burrows from Tea Party, Kelly Hoppy from Big Sugar, and Jody Rafool and 4 other musicians come together on the stage at the Caesars, and Caesars generously donated the stage free of charge, and we had more than 3,000 people come for a Christmas show that we gave the money to food banks. That's the type of thing that we have to get together to do. We have to do it. And so I would encourage you, if you have good ideas and you think the college can help in some way, come talk to us. My door is always open for sure.
And for $100, John and I will do a duet and give the money to the food bank right now.
I like this.
Now, to be fair, you could charge $100 and just let Allan play and sing, and I'll watch, because he's very good. He's very good on the guitar. I've heard him.
Okay, Matt.
Thanks. Yeah.
You'll play guitar.
Yes, I'll play. Yeah. Just a couple of things. One, 2 points are kind of related. First, that if we're going to wait for government to change our community, we're going to be waiting a long time. So one of the things that we should consider, you look what's going on in Detroit. They've had tremendous private sector investment, the Gilberts and the Illiches and the Fords. They've really, and I had this conversation with reporter recently from the Windsor Star, actually. If you really look at what their senior private capital is doing in downtown Detroit, it's really quite astounding. We don't have that, and you go to Grand Rapids, they've had similar. We haven't, even across Ontario, we don't really have that level of sort of cultural involvement and investment in our community. And I think collectively, working together, we can start that conversation as to let's work on our own sort of backyard, if you will, using our own resources, using our own people in the region, and don't wait for government to do it. I think, as I said before, we got outstanding business community, outstanding leadership in the private and public sector. How best can we do it on our own? And then at the end of the day, if the government wants to come in, that's great. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that the earlier discussion around jobs, any job is a great job. In my past role at the city, I saw people who came off public assistance and had lost hope go to $11 an hour jobs and then move up through the chain, and that was considered an entry job. So I think that message has to go out loud and clear that those jobs are important as well. Maybe not to you and I, But to some people, those are terrific opportunities for people and for young people to stay and get some generic kinds of training in terms of jobs. The second thing is that currently I'm a leadership coach. And I want to tell you that most of my, not most, I'd say 50% of my demographic is between 20 and 30 years of age. And those people want to work, and those people are getting jobs in Windsor. So I'm very concerned about this title of Windsor Gone. I'd really like to change it tomorrow to Windsor Stay. And I've
How about Windsor Attract?
I've seen people who've said there's no way. I did a speech at this University of Windsor soup event about a young guy who was out working in the greenhouse, had nursing training. He's now working at Schlegel Villages. I've seen people that are really feeling like there's no way, I've got to leave, and they're in big angst about leaving their families, and they decide, no, I'm going to stay here. And you know what? Yvonne's point about 20% of jobs are posted. 80% of those people, I just say, go talk to this person. Go talk to, have you made the phone call? I had a shy, young 22-year-old in my office, and I said to her, pick up, she's a social worker, there's some social workers sitting at my table, pick up the phone and call the director of this agency. They're not going to hang up on you. And so one of the benefits of Windsor is that we know each other. So you can go to Toronto. I lived there. When I graduated, I lived in Toronto for 2 years. I hated every minute of it. I didn't know one person. I had not one connection, and I did a whole lot better coming back to my community where my family lives. And what I'm seeing in my practice, in my leadership practice, is a lot of kids think they have to go right away to Toronto, or they have to go to Vancouver or out west. And what they're finding out is that when they're reaching out and networking, like is being suggested tonight, they are landing jobs here, and good jobs in healthcare and other sectors. So I think we have to look at the positives. We have a correction center that amalgamated. There's a lot of things with the university coming downtown. We need to celebrate, and we need to change that name, Windsor Gone, to Windsor Stay.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm just going to throw it open for, we've gone a little long, so I thank the panel for their patience, but like we said, these are vital issues we're talking about, so thank you. I'm going to call Marty Beneteau up here as well, our editor-in-chief. He's got something he wants to say. So first to the panel, anything quick you just want to say to wrap it up?
No,
Okay.
I think the conversation has been great, and it is an amazing city and region, and as I say, I'm optimistic that people are doing a lot of really good things, and we just have to get behind them and, yeah, all work together.
Thank you to the Windsor Star for hosting this. I really appreciate it. If there's one thing that young people need, it's a shot and it's experience. So if you have someone in your life and you think that they could, maybe they don't have the experience already, but you could see that they could get to the next level, give them a shot. And to what Matt was saying earlier about let's rebuild our city. Let's rebuild this region. We don't need anyone's permission.
I'll be selling tickets for the face-off in the back, $10. Just all the money will be put into entrepreneurial ventures after, though.
I just want to thank again Carolyn Thompson and Dylan, great work, and Marty for giving the go-ahead for this to happen. So it was a great discussion today. I'm just it's a great panel. It's been my pleasure to be up here with you. I learned a lot, and hopefully we can continue this. Continue this. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the Windsor Star, to Marty for doing this. I look forward to coming back.
When this series was pitched, and it was done in the truest sense of great journalism, based on some research which started small on Carolyn's part and then morphed into something quite a bit larger, it took on a life of its own, and it meant a lot to me as the parent of a 27-year-old man with whom I have a discussion almost on a weekly basis of whether he should stay or go. And that lure of Toronto is always tugging at him, and we're always having that discussion. So this meant a lot to me and to the Windsor Star family. The journalists who worked on it have been credited tonight, all except one. So I'll remind you that it was Carolyn Thompson was the lead reporter. Tyler Brownbridge, the most gifted journalist in this room here tonight, with the exception of Jason Crick. Tyler Brownbridge was the photographer, and Dylan Christie did work on the digital execution of it as well. But this man next to me, Don MacArthur, was, I would say, the digital heart and soul and the execution heart and soul of Windsor Gone, and lived and breathed it. I'll just wrap up by saying that we do these things because that's what good newspapers and that's what good media enterprises do. We try to take things that we think we can shine a light upon and bring about solutions and hopefully not tear down and not point fingers, although maybe some people felt they were finger pointed every way. We do it to create a discussion, and as I've said after the publication of the series, this was the start of a discussion. And it should carry on, and tonight is the next stage in it carrying on. And what I'm hearing tonight, I think Yvonne put it very well, this will get a lot of people talking, and if that's the case, I'm delighted. Mission accomplished for us. So again, thanks so much for coming.